$1 Million Baby. Not a boxing movie, but a story about dignity. Some people spend their entire lives fighting, not because they want to conquer the world, but because they want to prove one thing, that they deserve to be seen. A 31-year-old woman with no wealth, no connections, and almost no one believes she still has a chance. But she walks into an old, forgotten boxing gym anyway, because she has one dream: to become a boxer. Many people think her dream came too late, but she doesn't know yet. This journey will not only change her own life, it will also change the life of a lonely old man. This is $1 Million Baby, a story about dreams, family, love, and the choices we make when life becomes impossible. Maggie Fitzgerald was just an ordinary woman. She worked as a waitress. Every night after work, she went to the boxing gym to train. She didn't have the advantages of young athletes. She had no professional experience, no connections, and no one willing to guide her.
There's dozens of trainers who train girls. You won't have any trouble finding one.
If I stop calling you boss, will you train me?
No.
But she had one thing: determination. Every day, after everyone left the gym, Maggie stayed behind. She kept hitting the heavy bag, again and again, because she understood. If nobody believed in her, then she had to believe in herself first. She knew she might fail. But what scared her more was looking back years later and realizing she had never even tried. Because sometimes the thing stopping us is not reality. It is the moment when we give up on ourselves. What Maggie really wanted was not just a championship. At first glance, it seems like Maggie wants to become a boxing champion. But the truth is, she is searching for something much deeper. She wants to prove her own worth. Growing up, Maggie lived in a family where she rarely received approval, especially from her mother. Deep inside, what Maggie wanted most was just one sentence: "I'm proud of you." But when she chose boxing, her mother didn't see her effort. She only cared about one thing: what other people would think.
People hear about what you're doing and they laugh. Hurts me to tell you, but they laugh at you.
That rejection made Maggie even more determined. She was trying to prove. Sometimes people fight to change their destiny, not because they want to defeat others, but because they want to tell those who once doubted them, "You were wrong about me." Frankie was a boxing coach, experienced, respected, but also lonely and closed off. He owned a boxing gym, but he rarely truly trusted anyone. He spent his life around fighters, yet he kept everyone at a distance. When Maggie asked him to train her, he rejected her again and again. He said she was too old. She had no chance, and women didn't belong in boxing. But later, we realized something. Frankie wasn't rejecting Maggie because he looked down on her. He was rejecting her because he was afraid. He was afraid of losing someone important again. His past had left him with too much regret. So he chose distance, because if he never got close, he would never have to feel the pain of losing.
I gotta leave you, Frankie.
So I get to the title fight, and this guy takes you there.
I'm sorry, Frankie.
Many people appear cold on the outside, but sometimes they are just people who have been hurt too deeply. Until one day, Maggie kept showing up at the gym, rejected, ignored, even laughed at, but she never left. She trained by herself. She pushed herself forward. Even without a coach, she refused to give up. Finally, Frankie understood something. This woman wasn't playing around with boxing. She wasn't chasing fame. She truly needed a chance.
The problem is, this is the only thing I ever felt good doing. If I'm too old for this, then I got nothing.
And what Frankie needed was not just a fighter. He needed someone who could make him feel love again. Frankie finally accepts Maggie. He began training her, and Maggie changed Frankie too. Their relationship became something more than a coach and a boxer. They became family. Maggie needed someone who believed in her, and Frankie needed someone who gave him a reason to care again. During training, Maggie continued to grow. She won fight after fight. She went from a waitress nobody noticed to a fighter standing under the spotlight. Finally, she received applause, respect, recognition. The woman who was once ignored was finally seen by the world. But she still wanted one more thing, her family's approval. Maggie finally started earning money. She bought a house, hoping to give her mother a better life. She believed maybe this time her mother would finally be proud of her. She received the same thing again. Rejection.
Why don't you just give me the money? Buy me a house.
She could endure the pain of training. She could endure punches from her opponents. She could endure every difficult moment in the ring. But her mother's rejection was the hardest thing to accept. But life does not always follow our plans. Just when Maggie was closest to achieving her dream, everything changed. Frankie gave her a new boxing robe. On it was a name she didn't understand. Mochweasley. This was the championship fight in Las Vegas, a fight with $1 million prize. At the beginning, both fighters were evenly matched, but Maggie's opponent was stronger and more aggressive. Slowly, Maggie adapted. She found her rhythm, and she began to take control of the fight. But then, one unexpected moment changed everything. A single accident destroyed years of hard work and took away her ability to keep fighting after the accident. After being unconscious for several days, the woman who once stood proudly in the boxing ring could never live the same way again. She didn't just lose her physical freedom, she lost the identity that had defined her entire life. She was once a boxer, a fighter, a person chasing a dream. But now, she could only lie in a hospital bed. When her family finally appeared, at first we might think they came because they were worried about her. But they were not truly focused on Maggie's pain. They were talking about money, inheritance, and what they could get in the future. At that moment, Maggie finally understood something. For years, she believed success could bring her family's approval. But after losing everything, she discovered some love comes from blood, but some love comes from choice. The hardest question in life, facing the most painful question. If someone loses the most important thing in their life, what meaning does life still have?
I got a favor to ask you, Bob. I got what I needed. Don't let me lie here till I can't hear those people chanting no more.
Mochweasley. In Irish Gaelic, it means my darling, or my heartbeat. The name Frankie gave her was not just a nickname. It represented everything between them. At that moment, Maggie was no longer just his fighter. She became someone deeply important in his life, like a daughter, even without a blood connection. Maggie's final choice. Many people struggle to accept Maggie's final decision. When someone loses the identity that gave their life meaning, can they still live the life they want? Frankie saw Maggie as his daughter. He wanted her to keep living, but in the end, Frankie understood. Sometimes when you cannot change fate, love means respecting someone's choice. It was the hardest decision made by someone who loved her deeply. Because sometimes, the deepest love is not holding on. It is letting go. Ending message. $1 Million. Baby appears to be a movie about boxing, but deep down, it is about the battle every person faces in life. Maggie spent her whole life fighting, not just to win matches. She wanted to prove her life had meaning. They did not change the world, but they changed each other's lives.
I'm gonna disconnect your air machine, and you're gonna go to sleep. And I'll give you a shot, and you'll stay asleep. Wakushla means my darling, my blood.
But the moments when we bravely chase our dreams prove one thing: we truly lived. True victory is not about standing at the top forever. It is about facing yourself when life knocks you down again and again, and still choosing to live your own story. Not a story about winning a fight, a story about finding dignity, love, and meaning in life.
Frankie never came back at all.